Thank you for tuning in to this first episode of our little web series where we will build a website for OpenSource-Odyssey. Today, we want to lay the groundwork of what is to come in the next few videos. So I will go over the tech stack that I have chosen for this endeavor. Then we will sketch our little building plan as to what the website needs to be able to do. And finally, we will initialize the project. So actually opening the command line, typing a few commands and committing the first work to Git. As with any of these videos, this is by no means a from zero to hero coding tutorial, meaning I can't teach you how to code if you don't know how to already. Don't be afraid, there is many great videos online that you can watch that cover exactly this, where you can learn TypeScript, web development, React, NextJS, and even PayloadCMS, which will be our framework of choice. But for the purposes of this video series, it is more meant as an inspirational attempt to show you what is possible with building on open source tools. So I may go into specific reasoning why I'm implementing a certain function this way or that, but I won't teach you about the basic data types like strings, numbers, arrays, objects, and so on and so forth. However, if you don't know how to code yet, maybe you can still gain something from watching this video, and in your own time, you can brush up on your coding knowledge by watching other videos. So with that, let's go over the tech stack that I have chosen for this project. It is a tech stack that I'm pretty familiar with and that I'm a big fan of. So naturally, I want to write code with the tools that I'm familiar with. And up top on the list for our project is the framework PayloadCMS. Let's just go to the website. Payload is a framework that is building on top of NextJS, which we'll cover in a second here. And it allows us to really quickly create enterprise-grade software where we have an admin area where administrators can create and update pages or articles for the website, and they can configure how the website will look. It is really great for building something fast that is in the future easy to maintain and doesn't require a lot of code changes once we're done. So this is exactly what we're looking for. Next in our tech stack, we have one of the most popular React frameworks in the world right now, which is NextJS 15. So let's go over to NextJS. NextJS claims to be the React framework for the web, and from my experience, I can definitely say this is true. It gives a lot of great documentation and patterns to build highly efficient and performant websites. So again, if you're not yet familiar with NextJS, maybe it would be nice if alongside watching these videos, you can watch some other NextJS courses. And here I want to emphasize that if you don't know NextJS yet, in the series we will be using the app router, which is, I think, introduced with NextJS 13. So it is always nice to pick a tutorial that is not 3 or 4 years old, but something that is more or less recent. Third up on the list is React 19. React is an open source web framework. It was invented by Facebook, but it is by no means a closed source Facebook-like thing. Yeah, once in a while, these big companies like Facebook and Microsoft, they invent a gem, a piece of open source software that they release to the world and that others can build upon. And React is something like this. So it's a library for web and native user interfaces. It gives reactivity to the websites. And once again, if you are not familiar with React, we will definitely require some knowledge about React in this video series. So if you don't know something, maybe go ask ChatGPT or watch a video series on React itself. More specifically, we will be using React 19, so version 19. This has a lot of nice features and it's just the state of the art as of recording this video. For styling our website, we will be using TailwindCSS. Tailwind is basically a tool that allows us to ditch the, in my opinion, kind of clunky CSS files. I've never really liked CSS. And instead we can inline our styles directly with our components. So if you're familiar with React, you probably already know Tailwind, because it's just super convenient and it has taken the internet by storm. So this allows us to create these very nice components, style them easily without having to go to a CSS file and writing CSS code. Then for our components themselves, we will be using ShadCNui. ShadCNui gives us a lot of components out of the box that we can use in our own application. So here you see the list of components they have. Let's just pick one by random. For example, the drawer. If you want to have something like this that pops out from the bottom, then the drawer component is there for you. And ShadCN does a great job of giving you these components that are pre-made, but you can still customize them yourself, and it's very easy to do so. And again, in combination with TailwindCSS, it is super powerful to create a really nice, accessible, beautiful website in no time. Then for our programming language of choice, we're going to go with Typescript. Typescript was invented by Microsoft, and again, it's just one of these things where once in a while a garbage company like Microsoft invents something really genius. With JavaScript, if you're a little bit familiar, you may know that the type system is not really there, and a lot of errors can be in your code without you noticing them. And TypeScript fixes exactly this. So it gives you a type system for JavaScript. So all TypeScript code will eventually become JavaScript code and still be able to run in the browser, but it gives you a lot more certainty as a developer about your code because you can spot errors easily. For our database, we are going to go with MongoDB. MongoDB is a really popular NoSQL database. NoSQL means that it doesn't have a fixed schema for each table in the database, and we can more easily evolve our application as we go. And for something like the website that we want to build here, this is perfect because in the beginning, we are not quite sure yet of how our database will look like, and MongoDB just makes it easy for us to evolve our database tables as we go. And for our purposes, it is performant enough. We're building a small website here, so no high performance service where we would need something like PostgreSQL that is super performant. And last but not least, an honorable mention for the TechStack. I don't have any specific purpose for this in mind yet, but I'm sure eventually we are also going to introduce some kind of payment system. And for this, we are going to use MoneroTypescript. MoneroTypescript is a TypeScript library for interacting with Monero. It allows us to open wallets, create new wallets, check for payments, generate addresses, and all that good stuff that we need to have a full-fledged payment system in our website. And at some point, we will introduce this and come up with some cool little mechanism that we can maybe put a little bit of monetization into the website and just have a privacy-respecting payment system. If you haven't watched my previous video about the cypherpunk ethos, then definitely go watch this because money commodity is essential for the cypherpunk ideology and for the money of choice. At least for me, I'm always going to go with Monero because it respects the privacy of the user. And there you have it. That's the tech stack for the video series, or at least for building the website for OpenSource-Odyssey. I'm sure in future video series, I may pick this exact same tech stack. And the reason for it being that I'm just a very big fan of it. It really allows us to create something beautiful, performant in no time at all. And I think you will see this in the next few videos. So if you are not familiar with any of these tools, please familiarize yourself with them in your own time. Again, I won't have the time to go through all of these different building components, and there are a lot of great tutorials on the web already that you can watch for free if you just search on YouTube, or maybe ask ChatGPT, use it as your tutor to ask specific questions or maybe give some examples of how to solve one issue or another. Let's come to what we will actually build. So I mentioned before we will build the website for OpenSource-Odyssey. But let's think about a little bit what this entails, what this website needs to bring to the table in order to be a great tool for demonstrating my content, making the content accessible, searchable, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely going to use an admin portal, because whenever I update something on the website, I create a new article, I don't want to touch the source code at all. I don't want to do a new deployment. I just want to log in somewhere on the internet and then do everything there. So PayloadCMS, like I mentioned before, has us covered on this front. Then, of course, we also need a user front end. So this is something that you as a viewer may go to a website where you can see a landing page, for example, article pages. So where you can see different video series maybe, and we should have, for example, this video series, like one category or one tag maybe, and then another video series maybe that is focused more about Linux will have its own tag. So something like this for managing our content. And the CMS part in Payload is exactly standing for this, for Content Managed System. So a little more about Payload. I'm a super big fan of Payload. It is fully open source. I'm in no means sponsored by Payload. It's just because I think it's a great piece of open source software that I'm pushing it so hard. Let's go again to the website. I want to show you the documentation a little bit because I think it's really, really great, especially if you are a novice coder and you haven't built something like this, like a full-fledged website yet. It is a really great starting point because this is a framework that is made by professionals who have thought about all of the various challenges that you may face as a web developer already. And they have provided golden paths, let's say, that you can walk down to solve your issues super easily. So if you want to, I highly encourage you to read through the documentation, for example, what Payload is, the different concepts it uses, and all that kind of stuff. In future videos, we will also come back to this documentation just because it's such a great place to look things up. And I also want to give a huge shout out to the YouTube channel of Payload. There's an official YouTube channel where they are uploading recent videos about Payload 3.0. Payload 3 is kind of like the newest version, the major release of Payload, where they have married Payload itself, so the content management system, with NextJS. And here in these videos, they give you a great overview and also an in-detail look at how Payload works, how it's, for example, rendering the content management data with React and all of that kind of stuff. Since I won't go too deep on how Payload itself works, I think this is a great supplementary resource, for example, to go watch in your own time to get more familiar with this framework. So with all of the groundwork out of the way, I would say let's get started, initialize our project, and do a first commit to our code repository. This code repository is public, so if you want to go and check out the code yourself, definitely do so. I will try to keep my commits in order of the videos so you can follow along if you want to, but I highly encourage you to not follow exactly what I'm doing, but do your own version of it. Maybe you can take some of the commands, definitely the first starting command, but I think it would be better if you try to adapt it for your own needs. From my personal experience, that's been my best choice of learning. I go watch somebody code a project, but I don't copy word by word and instead try to adapt it to my own needs, maybe take a different route here or there because I have different needs than the person doing the video. Let's go again to the Payload documentation. And here in the installation section, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Of course, you need to make sure that you have the required software installed. So that means JavaScript or node.js with version 20.9 or higher and a compatible database. Of course, I'm going to go with MongoDB, and I already have MongoDB running on my system as a systemd service. If you don't know how to start MongoDB, go to the documentation here and maybe look for a Docker image that you can use. And they have a very nice explanation of this as well, how to run Mongo in a Docker container. And I think for most people, this will be very easy to follow along. It's just 1 or 2 commands. Of course, granted that you already have Docker installed. All right. So here's the quick start with Payload app. I'm going to copy this command. It's an npx command, so it will execute this piece of code from the npm package manager, but with a little twist, because I'm not going to use npm, but instead I'm going to use pnpm. pnpm is like a more, like a better version of npm. It uses a caching system, so usually it's a lot faster than npm with installing software. And of course, if you want to learn more about this, go watch this video here. So I'm going to open a terminal here and cd into my code directory. In my code directory, currently there is nothing, but if I'm going to write some code, I will put it into this folder just to keep my system organized. And now I'm going to paste the command that I have in my clipboard. I'm going to add the latest flag, just because I really want to make sure that I have the latest version of Payload running. And I'm going to add a P to the front. So it's going to be pnpx create payload app add latest. And when I run this, usually it will install some packages. I think I've already gone through this one, so it's cached and it's really fast. And now I can give my project a name. I think I'm going to go with OpenSource-Odyssey website. Something that is descriptive, where if I look at it, I definitely know what it is. Then I'm presented with a choice of project template. So either I can use an empty, more or less, template where Payload doesn't really have anything pre-configured yet. This is nevertheless, Payload is installed and you can definitely use it as a starting point. Then we have a website project template. This is a more full-fledged project that will be initialized with a lot of the stuff that a normal website, kind of like the thing that we want to build, already has built in. And this is the one we choose. And finally, there's also the plugin template if you want to create a plugin for Payload. But I'm going to go with the website. So now I can select my database of choice. We have Mongo, PostgreSQL, SQLite, and Vercel. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to go with a NoSQL database. So this is going to be Mongo. But if you didn't want to set up Mongo, you could also pick SQLite, which I think would then just create a file where your database lives in. But let's go with MongoDB. And now it asks me for a connection string. So this will be the name of our database by default. And let's just hit enter on this as well. And now pnpm is installing the packages and initializing the project. And just like that, Payload has completed the initialization step, and it gives us some next step that we can follow. So it says we can cd into the directory that we just created, and then we can run pnpm dev to launch the project. So let's do this right now. pnpm dev. And it says it has started on localhost 3000. So now it takes a little bit because the front end is compiling, but once that compilation step is finished, it will be very fast. And when you are building the application, so when you're actually deploying it to the web, this will take place beforehand. So of course, this doesn't really reflect that, oh, when you first launch the website, it takes a while to load. So this is the website template as it comes with Payload out of the box. We can see it's quite nice looking already. We have a color mode changer at the bottom, and it already changes the color. We have a header bar with a footer bar and logos. We have a search that is here, where I guess we can later on search some articles. Of course, there's no articles right now. And we get the information that we can visit the admin dashboard to create an account and seed the website. So let's go do this right now. So I'm opening this in a new tab. Again, the admin side is compiling, and now it has compiled. So now here I can create my admin user. Since it's the first time that I'm using this database, I don't have any admin users in my database yet, and I first need to create an admin user. So I'm going to go with a fancy name like this. It's going to be an email address that doesn't really exist or that I don't control, but it doesn't really matter. All it matters is, because this is local, I won't be sending emails. So it just matters that I remember this, and I will give it a strong password, and then I will give my admin user a name. Now I hit create. And with that, I am in the admin portal. So this is all coming out of the box with Payload. And maybe you are beginning to grasp how powerful this is. Normally, there is a lot of legwork involved when you're starting from scratch and you want to create an admin portal. All of this you would have to create yourself. We have a nice sidebar with the different collections, and these collections were populated because we chose the website template. So here we can create pages for our website. Let's do that right now and create a simple home page. So we are going to call it home because home is a magic slug where this basically leads to the root path of our website. Then we can provide some heroes. So this is a top section that is prominently placed. I'm just going to say hello world here. And we can add content. And for adding content, Payload is going with this block approach where you can, as a developer, create different kinds of blocks. And then the administrator of the CMS system can pick and choose these blocks and combine them in a way that makes sense to them. So for example, we can add a content block, which would be something like text. We can add a column. Make this column full size, so it spans the entire width of the page, and say, all right, now let's also add something else. Maybe let's add a call to action block. And here we can say, give me a call, whatever, add a link. And when somebody clicks on this, let's say, I want to go to a custom URL. Actually, let's go get Monero, and then we can provide a custom URL like the official Monero website. Give the button a label. We can even customize the button, and we can say it should open in a new tab when you click on this. And then I just hit publish changes. Now, when I go back to my website and I refresh, you can see, wow, already I have content on my page. I have my hero section, which is, I mean, all of this is not looking spectacular, but nevertheless, it would be very easy to make it look spectacular. And then we have our content block and our call to action button with the click me. And when I click it, it opens a new tab and I'm redirected to the Get Monero website. So this is at the core Payload. And again, I won't go into all of the details of this website template. We will be using it in future videos. And at that point, I may explain a thing or two. But again, I highly advise you to go watch this YouTube series from the official Payload YouTube channel, because they go into a lot more detail and explain not only what you can do, but also how it works under the hood. Great. Let's go back to the code. So here I'm in my code editor, and this is the project as I have it right now. What I want to do now is to commit this to a versioning tool. And for this, I have chosen GitLab, and I already created a new group called OpenSource-Odyssey. This is public, and the project will be public as well. If you want to go clone the repo or check out the code online, then you can go to the URL here and see the code. So now I want to create a new project. Let's call it OpenSource-Odyssey website. Put it to public and initialize without a README, because we will be pushing all of this that we have here to the repository, and there is already a README generated here. So let's click Create Project. And then we are presented with a few instructions that we can run to push our code. What I want to do is push an existing folder. So in my terminal, let's exit out of this here and put it alongside here. I am already in the directory of my project. So I have completed this step already. And then I'm just gonna copy all of these steps here. Oops, go like this. Paste them, hit enter. And then I have to provide the passphrase for my SSH key. Okay, and it's informing me that my SSH key doesn't have access to this repository. Let's go fix this right now. I'm going to go into the settings, repository, to the deploy keys, and add my SSH key to it. And now if I run this again, all right, I had to make sure that my SSH key actually has write permissions to the repository as well. And now the code is being pushed online. And when I go back to the repository, you can see all of the folders are here now, and we have the README that was generated by Payload itself. And I think that's gonna do it for this first video. Thank you for watching so much. I hope you enjoyed it. You're excited for what is to come, because I for sure am. And yeah, have fun coding. Onward.